and welcome to the Willowbank Raceway in Queensland for the prestigious 26th running of the Winternationals Drag Racing Classic. Proudly sponsored by Snap-on Tools and Winfield, this event also includes the 7th round of the prestigious Winfield Australian Top Fuel Series. At the Willowbank Raceway in Queensland, the 26th running of the important Winternationals Drag Racing Classic. Kevin Prendergast now joins me in the commentary box. Tucker, probably entitled to favouritism here.
Yes, certainly is. He's qualified very well. The Tucker brothers have utilised 2 or 3 engines in this BMP Tirana this season and have a fairly well-sorted combination. The Graham Knoll car, though, that's a brand new combination, one of the late model gas-style cars, and I think you'll find it very difficult to drive around Rob Tucker here. It's been a fabulous weekend, very big crowd, some great racing right throughout qualifying, and you're watching some of the highlights now from the first round. Superstock Eliminator, a category in drag racing that really is going ahead in leaps and bounds. And we're not far away now from a start in this one. That man is Graham Knoll on screen. Over on the other side of the racetrack in the Castrol GP50 lane is, of course, Rob Tucker. That car has a tendency to rear up at the front upon acceleration, leaving the lights. Both now moving into stage. Keep your eyes on Tucker's car over on the other side of the racetrack. Without a doubt, it will rear dangerously. There he goes, green lights on, and as expected, the front of the car came up well and truly off the ground. But look at the horsepower of Knoll, will you? Rockets by on the outside. It would seem that Tucker had a problem, and Knoll took full advantage of that. A 9.623 second pass at 136 miles per hour. Well, Tucker was disappointing, Kev. Yes, I'd say they had a gearbox problem there. The Modified Productions cars normally run a 4-speed gearbox, and looking at, he let a good leave off the lights, but obviously some form of mechanical problem, and that left an easy win for the Commodore. On the start line now, Gary Tanner all the way from South Australia. The Winternationals really has become a truly national event. Its elevation in status to the same level of the Australian Nationals and of course the Australian Drag Racing Grand Finals has drawn competitors from all over Australia, and Gary Tanner, the long drive up from Adelaide. That's very true. This event certainly ranks amongst the top 3 in Australian drag racing. Tanner, closest to your screen, the white Tirana, powered by a very potent engine. You're going to see that. He had handicap conditions there, and Tanner got a great start. There's a problem in the other lane for Enright. He's certainly not going on with the job, and Tanner is going to drive away into the distance here at Willowbank. A commanding victor, 10.03 at 134 miles per hour, and Tanner now advances to the next round. Yes, Superstock Eliminator, of course, is handicap conditions on national records relative to the individual classes. As we can see on screen now, the little double D gas car of Jeff Watson. There are so many different types of cars in this Eliminator. It's for sedans only, and the cars are equalised in performance by a national record. Jeff Watson's one of the cars that really is one of the likely contenders for a win here. Is one of the quickest in the country in the class, and always very, very tough in Superstock Eliminator. Very nice looking race car, well presented, as is the case with most of the Superstock guys. Jim Wyatt is his competitor over on the other side of the racetrack, doing it in the Castrol GP50 lane. He got a great start. Now the horsepower is unleashed, and they're running fairly close together on the racetrack, but you're going to find Wyatt will get there first as we wait for the time split now, and Wyatt at 10.756 at 126 miles per hour.
Willowbank Raceway track manager Dennis Siramis resigned as national director of ANDRA in 1984. In 1985, Willowbank Raceway opened its doors. Dennis, since 1985, Willowbank has progressed to be one of Australia's finest racetracks, and this weekend really is the icing on the cake.
It really is. This is our first permanent national event, the changing of the Winternationals. We've worked hard on it at Winternationals ever since we had it granted to us in 1988 after surface closed. And we took a few gambles with this meeting. We ran it at night in winter time, and quite a few people had some doubts about doing that concept because it's never been done before, but we've got a huge crowd, probably our largest crowd ever, and some excellent racing, and I think it's justified Andrew's decision to elevate the Winternationals to a national event.
One of the policies of the racetrack has been continual improvement of the facilities. Obviously, when we look behind us, the grandstands, the updating of the racetrack has paid off in terms of racer support, and obviously with a huge crowd today, spectator support.
Oh yes, we've found that as we improve our facilities, our crowds grow. We've just installed a second grandstand, And it's obvious that because it's just jam-packed now, we've probably got to build a third. So we'll just continue on, and eventually our aim is to have grandstands end-to-end both sides, with perhaps a seating capacity of 30-odd thousand people.
Now, obviously, Queensland is growing. The sport just seems to continue on an upward curve. You see that continuing for a long, long time?
I think so. Queensland itself is subject to a huge population increase, mostly from the south, where people are getting away from the south, coming up where the weather's fine and things are better. And so I think that we're just going to benefit from that influx from people from the south, and we just have to adjust our plan of attack, our marketing and our strategy and our facilities to suit that influx of people.
The sport itself is obviously benefiting from what Willowbank is doing, and obviously the racing that is developing from it. The support from the sponsors and the media seems to be following that curve as well.
There's overall support. I think part of the boom growth in the sport is not only just from Willowbank, it's happening all over the country. Most of it coincided with the opening of Eastern Creek. And a new drag strip at Eastern Creek has really made a magnificent difference. It's made the sport a national sport, and I think it's made people take notice.
Well, Dennis, this has obviously been a great event. We've got a little more racing tonight, but we look forward to the fans throughout Australia seeing more and more of this racing at this level.
Yes, and we'll see you at next year's Winternationals.
Thanks very much, Dennis.
Okay.
Andrew National Director Tony Thornton now joins us. Tony, the elevation of the Winternationals to national level really has done a lot for the event, and obviously is another step up for the sport.
Certainly has, Kevin. For many years we had one event that was the pinnacle of the sport for the year. That was the Nationals, or the Australian National Drag Racing Championships event, as it's known by its full title. We stepped that up with the return of the grand finals to Sydney 2 years ago, and now the sport has developed to the point where we can elevate the Winternationals to our third national championship event, with the presentation of the much coveted gold Andrew Christmas tree trophies and the highest level of championship competition for the participants today.
With some 300 entries at this weekend's event, the development of the sport in terms of the participants and the involvement from outside sponsors really seems to be growing.
Over the last 4 years, Kevin, the number of competitors we've had has doubled, in fact a little more than doubled given the figures of the last couple of months. Over that period, the spectators that we're attracting have also increased by about the same amount, and most importantly perhaps over the last 18 months or so, commercial interest and media interest in the sport has blossomed also.
Now, Andrew has adapted to that by forming a marketing arm with a marketing director in place. The benefits of that is obviously beginning to show throughout the marketplace.
It certainly is, Kevin. We undertook first and foremost to spread an awareness of drag racing and build its credibility. We're nearing the completion of that first step, and we'll be following that next year by pursuing major sponsorship for all levels of the sport and all the other things that the drag racers have been looking for many years. I'm really excited at the point we've reached now, and I'm looking forward to the future because the rewards that drag racing so richly deserves aren't too far away, I believe.
Now, last year a survey showed that drag racing was Australia's most watched motorsport. What are the targets for Andrew into the future?
I think to be a little bit conservative, we'd certainly like to sustain and refine what we've already achieved. Some of our facilities are finding that they're reaching the limits of their spectator facilities, and the major ones certainly are working hard to rectify that. The level of return for the racers needs also to step up a little, because it's certainly costing people an awful lot of money to sustain the performance level that we've all reached. All those areas need to be addressed, and the end result of that will be exciting entertainment for all the people who come to watch, a great pastime for the people who take part.
Words of wisdom there from Tony Thornton, who does such a marvellous job administrating drag racing around Australia. And we now move along to the first round of the all-important Top Fuel Dragsters 4,500 horsepower nitro burning, simply the elite in drag racing. And Kevin, this event brings together Jim Reed and obviously Terry Saini.
Yes, it does. Jim Reed has qualified very well in the #1 position. Terry Saini is in #4 qualifying position. We have 6 cars here for this, the 7th round of the Winfield Australian Top Fuel Series. And Reeds have really stepped up this weekend, and I would quite expect them to be able to really shake the Australian record sometime this evening.
Yes, indeed. Jim Reed and his team have been tireless in the workshop over the past few weeks leading up to this important event, the Snap-on Tools Winfield Winternationals. They've had quite a few problems in recent times, Kevin, with the clutch and also the supercharger on the car. and it hasn't been making Reid all that happy, the ultimate perfectionist. And he now moves into stage against Terry Saini, a fellow that's starting to go ahead in the sport, but still is a little off Jim Reid's pace.
Yes, Jim Reid has really developed the engine horsepower very, very well, but the secret to these cars, simply because of the horsepower, is getting that traction to the ground. And with the very, very technical clutch systems, if you don't get it right, then you will have problems in the run.
Okay, so Reid now in the lane closest to your screen, doing it for Winfield Racing, Valvoline, O'Brien Aluminium, and that's Saini, his opponent, on the upper side of the racetrack in the Castrol GP50 lane. Red light on him. For him, Reid leads on his own. Look at the nitro flame standing up, will you? About 2 metres into the night sky here at Willowbank. Saini coasts through, and Jim Reid a 5.312, a great run.
Yes, a great run for Reid. A 5.30 would make them fairly happy. Terry Saini obviously had a problem on the start line there. He left long before the tree even started to count down. Automatically disqualification by a red light. So I would suggest again some form of malfunction in the clutch system.
Great now to see on screen Keith Aegis.
Yes, Keith Aegis from Melbourne in the Oz Nitro dragster. They've qualified in 5th position, which is a little low down for them. And of course he'll be up against Graham Cowen.
And Graham Cowen, of course, needs no introduction in Australian drag racing, former national funny car champion, at the helm of the very well-known Rocket Industries organisation, and has put considerable time and money into the development of this magnificent-looking top-fuel dragster. And he's got more sponsorship, Kevin Prendergast, and Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna put together.
Yes, well, that's an indication of the strength of the Rocket Industries companies, and it's great to see a brand-new combination back into drag racing for Graham Cowen. This car has not done, it's only done 3 or 4 passes on the track. He ran a good qualifier with a 560, not driving it all the way through the lights. So he'd be very pleased to qualify in number 2 position. The potential for this car is very, very good. It's obviously got a lot of horsepower, but it's a new car for them, so they're learning how to operate it, how to get it down the racetrack, and the second qualifier is a great start for it at its first major meeting.
And of course, Graham Cowen is a welcome inclusion to the top fuel ranks in this country, and certainly will ensure the future of this great division. I've already said the elite in drag racing, not just in this country, but right across the world. So Aegis and Cowen line up side by side. They're into stage now. A little staging duel going on, and it will be great to see just how well Graham Cowen can get this heavy horsepower hitter down the end of the racetrack. A severe clutch explosion at Eastern Creek a couple of weeks ago, and anyone watching the program that saw that will well remember the incident to which I'm referring. So Aegis on the right-hand side of your screen. There they go. The nitro flames stand up. Graham Cowen, far too classy. Oh, the clutch has let go right at the end of the quarter.
Yes, a great run there from Cowen. The car obviously very good off the start line. Big header flames, but just as he got to about the 1,000-foot mark, it looked like the clutch let go again. A fair bit of debris, but a 5.45, a great run at only 205 mile an hour. That's a good indicator. If the car had it kept together, I would suggest that would have been somewhere in the 520s. But Cowen takes the win and moves through into the semi-finals.
Obviously, he'll obtain a fair bit of confidence out of that run. Now we move along to the next pairing in top fuel. That car on screen being driven by Mark Shepherd, the Rapisada Racing entry, and the ever-consistent, ever-reliable Robin Kirby from Melbourne.
Yes, Robin Kirby really has been Mr. Consistent. He's still currently second in this Winfield Australian Top Fuel Series. Mark Shepherd has been behind the wheel of the Rapisada dragster for this summer season. There seems to be some problems with the car. It's not firing as evenly as it should do. Traditionally, if you have a look at the nitro flames, they sort of work their way down the pipes as they come out. But Mark Shepherd's in the burnout. It's said to be dead on one side of the engine, so they may have some problems. Robin Kirby, of course, so consistent, he's likely to really be able to get around Mark Shepherd at this point.
Kirby running under the Kirby Racing banner. And this sport, and for that matter, all forms of motorsport, need people like Robin Kirby. Very consistent, always there, travels right around the country, throws a lot of support behind his sport, and most times will get down the other end of the racetrack, and that's very important. Shepherd, as Kevin has alluded to, may have some problems here. You can see that there, Kev.
Yes, it certainly has done. It looks like it's dead on one side, so I'd expect there's probably going to be a sole over here from Robin Kirby, who'll move to the semi-finals.
Yes, Shepherd takes no further part. Kirby gets the business done and rockets down the end of the quarter mile here at Willowbank Raceway. Once again, Robin Kirby, the Victorian, demonstrating a lot of consistency. A 6:05 at 228 miles per hour. Well, certainly Graham Cowen on the comeback trail will be a happy man. Kevin Prendergast is now with him trackside.
Number 2 qualifier in round 7 of the Winfield Australian Top Fuel Championships, Graham Cowen. Graham, first round a 5:45, an improved time but some trouble up the top end.
Yeah, the car left the line like a rocket ship. I think we ran 9.935 60-foot time, which indicated we were on a 5.0 or a 5.10 pass, and unfortunately we had a clutch malfunction, and the clutch came out of the car around 1,000 foot. We shut the car off 4.5 seconds, and we still managed to run a 5:45. We're full of enthusiasm. Unfortunately, we haven't got the time or the parts to put the car back together tonight, but I can assure you we'll find a problem, and we'll be back with eight cylinders firing.
Yes, the 60-foot time was the best I think we've had in Australia so far. There was an excellent 60-footer and obviously an indication of the car's potential.
Yeah, well, I honestly believe this car's got 4-second potential, and come summer, we'll be ready for it. You know, and that 5:45 pass of mine was a personal best, by the way. There's been a funny car guy. My previous best was a 5:51 in the United States. So we've achieved 2 things here. We're on a personal best and the best 60-foot time in Australia. So we didn't waste our time coming here, that's for sure.
Well, after a couple of laps in the dragster, how did you find the transition?
Well, I'm still a bit dazzled by the power of this thing. I mean, you touch the throttle, man, and all of a sudden your head wants to stay on the starting line. The car wants to take off. But it's fun.
Well, it's great to see you back in drag racing, and we look forward to many more very fast performances.
Yeah, our crew does as well. Thank you.
And the drag racing continues at Willowbank Raceway. Top alcohol now, round 1, one of the most popular eliminators on the national drag racing scene. Going through the burnout there is Queensland's Gary Phillips, and that on screen is, of course, Steve Harker in the funny car.
Yes, this will be a very, very important confrontation for both competitors. Gary Phillips on screen at the moment is the defending champion in the Australian Series and #1 qualifier. Steve Harker in the funny car is the current leader in the 1993 series, so he's looking to defend his points lead. But of course, the most important aspect of this weekend's event is the likelihood of one of the competitors being the first ever top alcohol car to run a 5-second time.
Yes, indeed, that's very much what it's all about this weekend, and Gary Phillips certainly has the package to be able to achieve that goal. So Harker on the other side of the racetrack, and we're not far away from the start. Green lights on, any tick of the clock should be a magnificent pairing, this one. Harker on the right-hand side of your screen. Gary Phillips has red-lighted. Phillips has red-lighted, so Harker only needs to stroll to the other end of the racetrack and obviously transfer to the next round. A 6:08 at 224.2 miles per hour.
Yes, Gary Phillips would be very, very upset about that. A 6:08 to a 6:09 is a good indication of the closeness of racing in top alcohol, but the red light means that Steve Harker advances to the semi-finals.
Kevin, now 2 of the best presented race cars in any form of motorsport in this country. That is Steve Reed's machine on screen. In the other side of the racetrack, or on the other side of the racetrack, is John Noonan in the Top Gun dragster.
Yes, a great pairing once again. Jim and Stephen Reed have always been the leading competitors in top alcohol in Australia. This car has run as quick as 6:02, so it's one of the quickest cars in the country, and he really will be looking to advance here over the Top Gun dragster.
Stephen Reed has shown plenty of intestinal fortitude this year, involved in a terrible crash not that long ago, and now has the car rebuilt and set to go once more. Noonan on the other side of the racetrack, a pretty fierce competitor, and this will go right down to the wire. The rev is now building. Crowd rises 1. Top alcohol action about to unfold, and they're gone. A very even start. Noonan's front of that car got right up off the ground, and the horsepower of Stephen Reed's car absolutely evident with a 6:19 at 227 miles per hour, and it keeps on coming now, Kevin. Stan Tyndall against the Englishman, the former European champion.
Yes, Stephen Reed, the only competitor outside America ever to have run a 5-second pass in top alcohol. He has really worked very, very hard to race in Australia this summer. He's found adaptation to the Australian conditions to be fairly difficult, but he's looking for a win here at the Winternationals.
Yes, indeed, he describes the domestic motor racing here in Australia, top alcohol competition, as being as tough, if not tougher, than anywhere else in the world. And he's had a lot of problems with tyre shape, Kev.
Yes, he has. The horsepower that these cars are producing is fairly unique in the power band, and he's had clutch problems and fuel problems which have resulted in tyre shake. And in fact, as a result of that, he's in fact broken 3 transmission cases, which is virtually unheard of these days in top alcohol racing.
Steve Reed, very resilient, always gets the job done, and it invariably ends up in the final of top alcohol competition. So Tyndall closest to our camera, Revs building top alcohol dragsters. Green light on, Reed got an absolutely blistering start. Tyndall now starting to certainly gather momentum. They run side by side towards the top end, very close indeed. Reed gets the upper hand, a 6.15.
A great race once again, a 6.15 over a very much improving Stan Tyndall with a 6.17. This is really turning out to be some great performances from top alcohol.
People watching right around Australia may be confused by the plain white funny car that you saw affecting the burnout a couple of seconds ago. That is in fact Jeff Burnett, who normally runs the altered machine, in fact was credited as having the fastest altered in the world, has now chosen to go for the funny car configuration, and Kevy's up against one of the nation's best here.
Yes, the Alan Dobson driven Oldsmobile Achiever, sponsored by Castrol, really is one of the best presented and toughest teams in top alcohol racing. The performance of this car, the crew setup, etc., is equal to anything in the world, and they really have done extremely well this year.
That man is Jeff Burnett, a gutsy competitor. He knows he's got his hands full here. A real challenge on the quarter mile as he squares up beside Alan Dobson all the way from Western Australia. That man on screen assisting Dobson is Greg Gower, the car owner, and boy oh boy doesn't he love his drag racing. Just listen to the horsepower and the revs of these machines. Dobson closest to your camera, doing it for Castrol. A start not far away now. There they go. Simultaneous green light, even start. Look at Alan Dobson, will you? Too much class, too much horsepower, and absolutely sprints away.
Well, look at the time, a 6:01 at 229 mile an hour. That's a good indicator. Those guys have got the horsepower, the track conditions are there, and I'd say the 5-second time is definitely under threat later on tonight.
Another fabulous eliminator now, Pro Stock sedan, going ahead in leaps and bounds in this country, and we're going to see a couple of the nation's best. First up, round 1, Pro Stock sedan, Tony Wedlock. There he is, a great looking piece of machinery, and goes just as hard as it looks good. On the other side of the racetrack is Bruce Leake in a fairly new car.
Yes, the quality of the Pro Stock field here at the Winternational is exceptional. Some 10 cars qualifying for the 8-car field. Tony Wedlock really has done extremely well in this year's competition. He's battling for the lead in the series, so this race once again is very, very important. Bruce Leake from Canberra. This is a new car, one of the later cars coming out of the USA, but he really is developing the performance of it.
Carburetted vehicles, the Pro Stock sedans, similar in specifications to touring cars in road racing terms. Wedlock got a great start. He left Leake standing at the lights. Great reaction time, and Wedlock is really making his intentions well and truly clear from the outset. An 8.24 and a very good run by him. Now one of the other heavy hitters in national Pro Stock racing, Joe Polito.
Yes, Joe campaigns the only Ford currently running in Australian Pro Stock racing, and he's up against the West Australian Michael Marriott. Michael, having travelled across from Perth to race at the Nitro Championships and here at the Winternationals, he's going to find it fairly difficult here. Polito has always had a lot of horsepower and is reasonably good on his reaction times, and so it'll be a difficult one for Marriott to be able to drive around.
So Michael Marriott and obviously his opponent on this occasion, Joe Polito from Sydney, line up side by side. There's a quarter mile of bitumen between right where they are, the starting lights, and obviously the end of the racetrack. Should be a beauty, this one. Polito enjoys a strong following right around the country. One of the most popular men in Pro Stock racing. Away they go. Marriott got a good start. So too did Polito. You'll find that Polito will draw beside him and race away with this one. And that's indeed the way it's worked out. An 8.19 at 168 miles per hour.
Yes, an excellent time there for Polito, but he was very, very slow on the lights. And Marriott, a good reaction time, but just didn't have the horsepower.
Well, what more can be said? As he goes through the burnout, he's made it his own. Victor Bray, super stock eliminator. And Peter Samet is his competitor or opponent here. And Samet hails from Melbourne in one of the most technically advanced race cars in Australian drag racing.
Well, we're in round 2, and this really is a tough matchup for both cars. Victor Bray running in AA gas on a record of 7.05, and he's up against the double D gas car of the Samet brothers. This car has the ability to run 4 or 5 tenths under the national record, but at previous occasions recently, Victor Bray's really had the advantage and been able to defeat the Samets. Can this happen again?
The twin-turbo Nissan Genuine Parts 300ZX machine. One of the nicest pieces in national drag racing, up against the tomato farmer Victor Bray. Apart from Jim Reed, probably the most popular man in national drag racing. Samet obviously got a fairly decent handicap start there. Can Bray run him down as they work their way towards the top end? Bray at 7.017.
Moving now to top door slammer and the hot cargo Falcon utility of Alan Fountain from Sydney. And he's up against Darryl Woods in the supercharged Ford Capri named the Bear. This is top door slammer, puts all of the supercharged cars together. This is a non-championship eliminator, but it's something that's been added to the Winternationals, obviously with the public in mind, a very, very popular racing group.
Yes, obviously these cars can also meet the relevant criteria to take part in wild bunch competition. I must admit I'm not a huge fan of the fact that they've changed their identity this weekend. I think it's confusing for the public, but obviously that is the promoter's choice, and I have to respect that. But nonetheless, they are very popular, as Kevin said, and Alan Fountain in the hot cargo Ute really knows how to do the business.
Yes, Alan's been very, very consistent. Normally he would run wild bunch or super stock eliminator. This is the top door slammer is essentially a derivative of that. So some great racing. Alan Fountain leads behind the Capri on a handicap start. He'll really look to chase him down over the top end and takes the win with a 7.63 at 179 mile an hour.
And now we move along to the Top Fuel semi-final, number 1. It's Jim Reed, 10 times national champion, the doyen of Australian drag strips, possibly on a solo pass.
Yes, that is correct. There's 3 cars left on the field. Jim Reed, the number 1 qualifier, gets the solo into the final. They ran a great 5.31 in the first round, so they'll be looking to improve on this. The air has got a lot colder. The track conditions are still good, so we would expect an increase in performance from the 5.30 that was in the first round.
Yes, indeed, we should remind our viewers at this point in time that this weekend's Winternationals Classic also comprises the 7th round of the Winfield Australian Top Fuel Series. Jim Reed on screen there, signalling to Bruce Reed, his eldest son, that he's happy with proceedings. And we're not now far away from the start of Jim Reed's solo pass in the semi-finals here. 5.26 is the national record. Jim Reed would absolutely love to go under that as he now edges forward in the Winfield Top Fuel dragster. Keep your eyes on the light tree center of the screen. Look at the nitro flames. Away Reed blasts, and look at that man go, will you? All the experience in the world and got the business done. A 5.26. He's equaled the national record, and look at the adulation and the jubilation of the crew. Fantastic stuff.
Semi-final times here at round 7 of the Winfield Australian Top Fuel Series, and once again Robin Kirby from Victoria's in the semis. But Robin's got a bonus this time. Graham Cowen, his opponent, is out of racing, so Robin gets a solo. Robin, that's a good break for you.
Yes, well, after the last round at Eastern Creek, we had a pretty abysmal time there. Broke the rear end in the car and then worked till 4 in the morning to repair it, only to have the transmission let go on the first run of the day, which put us out of competition. But we had a run here yesterday. The car ran 6.1, dropped a couple of cylinders, burned a piston, and then it's come out here tonight in the first round and run 6.05 and hasn't hurt any parts, so we're pretty happy with it.
Okay, semi-finals is automatic, and then Jim Reed in the final.
Yeah, well, I guess the old master is going to be pretty hard to toss, but you never know until the wind light comes on at the other end who's going to take the trophy.
Yes, you've certainly been in this circumstance many times over the last 12 months, and you really have come out a winner on quite a few.
Well, I guess, you know, we're obviously not the fastest car, but you don't get to the third position on the point series by turning up here and there and running pretty ordinary.
Well, congratulations on the performance so far this weekend. We look to talking to you after the final.
Well, we'd like to take the trophy home. We'll see how we go.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
The very likeable Victorian Robin Kirby is in fact on an automatic win here as he lines up beside Keith Aegis in the second Top Fuel semi-final. Sadly, Kevin Prendergast, second top qualifier Graham Cowen, unable to make it back.
Yes, unfortunately, that very good pass damaged the clutch mechanism beyond repair today. So Rob Kirby takes an automatic win, but obviously to make it interesting for the crowd and of course the viewers, we've been able to put together the matchup with Keith Aegis.
Aegis does seem to have a problem, Kevin, and there's a fair bit of concern around his Oz Nitro Top Fuel dragster at the moment, and it's looking very much as though Robin Kirby is going to be participating on his own here.
Yes, this run will put Kirby into the final, and once again, Kirby's consistent performance has made it to the final of a major meeting.
Yes, that means that Kirby will face Jim Reed in the final, and that's not the first time we've seen that in Top Fuel racing in this country, and certainly won't be the last. So Robin Kirby, all now in readiness, green light on. He got away fairly quickly, obviously shuts the car down, and he will just stroll through at a rather leisurely pace.
Semi-final time for Top Alcohol. Alan Dobson, a 6:01 in the first round. Is the 5-second on?
Certainly is. Our crew chief, Greg Gower, he certainly wound the wick right up then. We had plenty of horsepower on board the last time, and I'd say this time's a real good chance of doing it, yeah.
It's been cold and clear. The track's obviously cooling down. Obviously, it may be a bit slippery in the middle.
Yeah, true too. Just belongs the traffic keeps rolling out there and the racing keeps going. The track temperature should stay with us. So hopefully it'll be okay and we'll be able to get down without kissing the wall or doing anything naughty.
Any surprises in the car for this round?
Yeah, Greg's turned the wick up a bit more, as I say. He's screwed a bit more horsepower into it, and he's just said then, better hang on.
Alan Dobson sounding supremely confident about his chances in the Castrol Funny car of becoming the first Top Alcohol car to run into the elusive 5-second barrier. Steve Harker, though, is formidable opposition, Kevin.
Yes, Steve certainly is. He currently leads the Australian Top Alcohol Championship point score, but there's no doubt that the Dobson-Gower combination has been the car with the most horsepower on Top Alcohol this year. It's run a 6:01. It's repeated that again today, 235 mile an hour. They've certainly got the horsepower in the engine. All they've got to do is get the combination right with the clutch and get it down the track.
Wherever you're watching right around Australia, welcome to our telecast of the 1993 Winfield Snap-on Tools Winternationals. You may be about to see history in Australian drag racing. That man on screen, Alan Dobson, all the way from Western Australia, against the banana vendor Steve Harker, who puts a lot of time and money into the sport of Top Alcohol drag racing. They line up side by side in staging. Keep your eyes on the Castrol Funny car of Alan Dobson. He might just do it here. He'll need brilliant reaction time, and he's very capable of that. Horsepower unleashed, green lights on simultaneously. A sensational run by the Castrol car, blasting across the bitumen here. A 5.904, they've done it.
Owner of the Castrol Funny car, Greg Gower. Greg, Australian history, the first ever car in Australia to run a 5-second time.
Yeah, obviously very excited, Kevin. We're absolutely wrapped. Didn't only run a 5.90, ran a 5.90. So that's great, unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, you're certainly going to go down in history. Now it's final times. Can we repeat the performance and win?
We certainly hope so, Kevin. We're a bit worried about the track, that the dew won't come in, but if the track's there, we think we can run faster, as fast or faster, sure.
Well, a 5.90, Australian history-making time. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Great.
A truly remarkable performance by the Castrol Funny car team comprising Greg Gower, Alan Dobson and the entire crew. And the atmosphere here at Willowbank is really starting to build. Anticipation in the air, the times are tumbling. The second semi-final now in top alcohol, and a great matchup. The Englishman Steve Reid, that's him on screen, and in many respects his opponent is the man that a lot of people believe would be the first to drive into 5 seconds. I refer to the other Steve Reid from Queensland.
Yes, you're right, David. Both of these competitors have been on the money. Brisbane Steve Reid in the funny car really has been the leading in performance for top alcohol for a couple of years, and he ran 6:02 6 months ago. Everyone expected that he would be the first into the 5s, but as we've just seen, it's not the case. This will be one really, really close race. Whoever wins this goes to the final against Alan Dobson, and frankly, I'm not the one to pick the winner at this point.
Revs now building. Dragster against funny car. Green lights on now. The Dragster got a great start. Here comes the funny car, though. They're side by side towards the top end. Steve Reid in the funny car, a 6:06.7, a great run.
We've got Jim Reid with me. Jim, you've just run the fastest ever alcohol time in Australia. You missed out with a 5-second pass, but 236 mile an hour. Brilliant.
Thanks, Kevin. We've just worked our behind off in the pits. We just had a lot of problems after the last round, and it made us feel a little bit better anyway.
Well, congratulations. You've had a hell of a year, and that's a great way to stop it.
Thanks very much, Kevin.
As we now advance to semi-finals for top bikes, Kevin Prendergast previously speaking with one of the nice guys, one of the elder statesmen in drag racing, Jim Reid. Well, what more can be said about these guys? The handlebar heroes on the top bikes. That man is Scott Commons, and his opponent will be Jay Upton, Kevin.
Yes, the top bikes, the nitro-burning equivalent of a top fuel dragster for motorcycles. Jay Upton on the Yamaha traditional Japanese engine up against the American Harley-Davidson driven by Scott Cummins.
Should be an interesting matchup. You can't tell me for one moment they look comfortable on these machines. Boy, oh boy, they can accelerate. Upton in the Castrol GP50 lane, right-hand side of your screen. Green lights on now. Great reaction time by Commons, in fact, who's now starting to move forward, but Upton really starting to tear away towards the top end, and you'll find there that Upton, with more miles per hour, takes the win with a slower time.
Moving now to the semi-finals of Pro Stock, and this should be a very, very close race. Joe Polito, the only Ford in the field, up against the current champion, Hans van Dyke from Melbourne.
Yes, indeed, Kevin, two of the heavy hitters in Australian Pro Stock racing, and here we see Joe Polito in the American-built Ford Probe up against the Australian-built Commodore of Hans van Dyke. A great match, and they would dearly love to beat one another.
Hans van Dyke here should be the favourite. Hans has qualified very, very well and is currently leading the point scores, but Joe Polito is always a surprise, and anything can happen.
Very popular drivers right across the nation. Engine revs build. Polito closest to your camera, Van Dyke in the Castrol lane on the other side of the racetrack. Staging duel here. Van Dyke, great start. Polito certainly had ordinary reaction time. You're going to find that Van Dyke will be almost impossible to run down from there, and Hans van Dyke will advance to the final against the winner of this pairing.
Yes, the next pairing from Queensland, Tony Wedlock in the Pontiac Trans Am, and he's up against South Australia's Jerry Parenti in a Camaro. Tony Wedlock, number 2 in Australia in Pro Stock in the 1992 year, has travelled all over Australia racing in Pro Stock Eliminator, and certainly one of the heavy hitters.
A nice guy too, Tony Wedlock, quite unassuming about his success in this sport, one of the very fine competitors. So Parenti and Wedlock, second semi-final Pro Stock sedan action, and you're watching it from Willowbank Raceway in Queensland. Away they go. Parenti got the front of the car well and truly up off the ground. Wedlock, too much class. He went past Parenti so quickly that Parenti almost caught pneumonia with the breeze.
An 8:26, 1:57 win. Wedlock would be very pleased to move against Hans van Dyke into the final. Pro Stock motorcycle now, and current Australian champion Les Donnan riding the Castrol Suzuki up against Gavin Spann from Queensland.
Les Donnan has been flying the Castrol colours at great heights over the past few months. Gavin Spann, plenty of experience. Good to see him back in the fold. nicely turned out machine, and in fact all Pro Stock motorcycles competing at Willowbank this weekend are very high up in the presentation stakes. Donnan in the Castrol lane, rather aptly.
Yes, Les Donnan is well known for his reaction times. Gavin Spann really has had great performance levels. This is a brand new American bike, but one thing that Les Donnan is famous for, and that's his reaction times, and that's going to be Spann's biggest problem.
Green light, Les Donnan got a blistering start, got well and truly out of the lights, great acceleration and reaction time, and as Les Donnan blasting away here, he'll transfer to the final in Pro Stock motorcycle.
Coming up now, the second semi-final, Dennis Ackland from Melbourne, and he's up against West Australia's Ray Eason. Eason, currently the quickest and fastest Pro Stock motorcycle in Australia, with an 8.000 time in Melbourne in February. Eason has suffered a little bit with gearbox damage to this motorcycle, but his performance levels have been right on.
Let's see how it works out. Eason and Ackland are side by side. You will find, though, Ray Eason has too much class. He's getting the job done now. An 8.246 at 151 miles per hour. Here he is now, Barnstorm and Benny Gatt, one of the throttle stompers in Top Door Slammer Eliminator. So too is that man, Greg Dobson, who lights up the rear wheels.
Certainly semi-final of Top Door Slammer. This has been a great bracket this weekend. The best of Wild Bunch and Super Sedan racing in Australia, and the semi-finals puts two of the most popular sedan cars in Australia up against it. Queensland versus New South Wales. It's like a rebirth of the state of origin. Dial in handicaps here for this racing eliminator. It's done on a normal Wild Bunch format, so either competitor has equal chance of winning.
A magnificent piece of equipment. Greg Thompson's car, right-hand side of your picture. Ben Gatt needs a big one here. Go for it, Benny. Green light on, handicap conditions. Look at Thompson down the outside, and Thompson just drives away. Unbelievable pass. A 7.640 at 143 miles per hour. And Kevin, we now move along to the all-important Top Fuel final. Jim Reed against Robin Kirby.
Yes, this will be a very, very interesting battle. Jim Reed has obviously led the performance levels all weekend. He's run a personal best. He's equalled the Australian record. But as we've learned in the past, that doesn't mean anything until it comes to the final. Robin Kirby once again into a final. Consistent performances. He's run 5 tonight. It has been very, very cold. The track is still in pretty good condition, but because it is so cold, someone like Jim Reed with so much horsepower runs the risk of overpowering the racetrack.
Yes, a very good point, as indeed was the point about Reed's consistency right throughout the weekend. It really is a case of the fact that he needs to be in front at the end of the final. As is the case in circuit racing, you've got to be in front at the end of the last lap. So Jim Reed now reversing back into the staging area. He'll have a heap of respect for Robin Kirby here.
Yes, on a night like tonight, the air is very, very cold, very, very dense. That means that car can make a lot of horsepower. They will have to make sure that the clutch and engine combination is absolutely perfect on these runs. Otherwise, they really do run the risk of overpowering the track and, as we know, blowing the tyres off.
And a start in the Top Fuel finale is now imminent here at the Winternationals. Jim Reed closest to your camera, Robin Kirby on the other side of the racetrack. There they go, Nitro Flame standing up on Jim Reed's Winfield car. Look at him go, will you, the 10 times national champion. It's all over bar the shouting. A 5.585 second pass at 253 miles per hour. As we now advance to the final of Top Alcohol. Here, Alan Dobson from Western Australia, the brand new record holder, is set to take on the might of Steve Reed in the dragster.
Yes, the Dobson Gower car really has dominated this event. They ran a 6.01 in the first round, and of course that history-making 5.90 in the semi-finals. They really do have the horsepower this weekend. They've been able to handle the track conditions. It's very, very cold, but that's what makes the horsepower. Steve Reed from England in the dragster once again has battled with track conditions, but he's a very, very tough competitor, and Alan Dobson won't be taking him lightly.
A ton of experience, the two drivers here. to contest the top alcohol final. Steve Reed has had a lot of problems this weekend and in previous events with tyre shake on that car, the dragster. It would seem now that everything has improved for him.
Yes, and of course Steve Reed was the first driver outside America to run a 5-second time when he ran that in England, and now he's up against the first in Australia, and that's Alan Dobson in the funny car. Steve Reed is well renowned for his reaction time, but Alan Dobson, I think they have the horsepower in this car, and I think they should be able to drive around the outside.
The funny cars seem to be producing just that little bit more horsepower this weekend. Very cool air here at Willowbank Raceway. In fact, it's that cool I'm looking for a fridge that's in to get warm. Alan Dobson, Castrol funny car, closest to your camera. Steve Reed, the Englishman, on the other side of the racetrack. Set for a start. Green lights. The Englishman, brilliant reaction time, got away like a gun. But again, Alan Dobson, all the horsepower in the world, butts the Castrol funny car home with a 5.979 second pass at 230 miles per hour. He's done it again.
Well, Alan, congratulations. It's been a hell of a weekend. First into the fives with a 5.90 in the semi-finals, and now a win with a 5.97.
Thanks very much. We're really happy. Really happy for the Castrol family and our race team. Greg Gower, Craig Lasby, Phil Gardner and Bronte Howson. Absolutely great. It's a real team effort to do something like this. It takes a team. It's not an individual win by no means. To put this sort of power down, the track tonight was a little bit moist there, and yeah, we've done really well. We're really proud.
Well, that's 2 wins in a row for you, one at Eastern Creek. You move now into the final. You're pretty close to being able to catch up for the championship.
Yeah, we certainly are looking forward to that championship down there in Sydney, Eastern Creek, coming up in November. That's a big one, and we'll be full steam ahead for that.
Well, congratulations, a great win.
And thanks to all the other competitors and all our fans. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Steve, runner-up, it's been a hell of a race for you.
Yeah, I thought I had it there for a minute until I saw him had just come out the corner of my eye, and it's that was the best run we've had all weekend. I mean, it's the less shake and everything else, and so it was, you know, these guys deserved it. We tried our best, but there you go. It's one of them deals, and, you know, I'm really pleased for him that at least it's an Australian car that's run the first 5 in Australia. I mean, it'd been nice if we could have done it, but it's quite fitting that they've done it.
Well, you've been down here all year. What's your comments on the season of drag racing in Australia?
Tough. Real tough. I mean, it's been tougher than what it has in Europe. I think the hardest thing has been trying to learn the tracks, which are quite different to the ones in the States and different to the ones in Europe. And so it makes life, you know, but this year we've got all the records now. It stands us in good stead for next year, and we're gradually dialing this shake out the car, and now we'll have a winter. I'll go back for a month's holiday and see my wife for the first time in God knows how long, and we'll be back fit and ready for, well, I'll be back in a couple of months' time.
Well, congratulations on the year and the runner-up at the Winternationals.
Thanks very much.
Steve Reed, a man that's made a very substantial impact on national drag racing in the past 12 months. We now move from 4 wheels to 2 and the competition bike finale.
Yes, Daniel Cumming on the 2-stroke altered bike up against John Parker on the Harley-Davidson. Handicap start for the Suzuki. He's taken a good leave off the start line. John Parker, obviously a problem, so Daniel Cumming will go through for the win with a 9.50 at 134.09.
He certainly did have a problem. Super gas final, and this should be a wild pairing. A couple of hot-looking cars, and the crowd have really been enjoying the super gas action right throughout the weekend. That's Andrew Roberts on screen, and he's up against Colin Lloyd.
Colin Lloyd, the current Australian champion in super gas. Both of these cars up from Victoria, which is the centre of Australia's super gas racing. 990 is the index, the red light, so the automatic win goes to Andrew Roberts.
Yes, indeed, bad luck for Lloyd. He will be filthy on himself about that one. We now move along, the action coming thick and fast. Getting quite late here at Willowbank, modified final, and again we see 2 very, very experienced campaigners meeting here.
Yes, Bob Millett from Townsville, one of the most experienced modified racers in Australia, just indicating to his crewman to make sure that the handicap is right. He's up against John Sting in the dragster. Handicap start to Millett in the altered. Millett's going to have to run really hard, but I think Sting will cruise across the top end with a breakout win to John Sting, 8.49, and the lose to Bob Millett.
Superstock final now. Peter Zammit from Victoria up against Gary Tanner from South Australia. Tanner running B modified production in the GTR Supplies Tirana, and up against one of the most sensational race cars in Australia, the Zammit Brothers Double C Gas.
Yes, indeed, Zammit's car on the cutting edge of technology. Twin-turbo Nissan 300ZX, sponsored by Genuine Parts and Aero Crep, and here he comes. He blasts past Gary Tanner, and Zammit rockets away with a 901. Yes, Superman Zammit, very successful in this sport of drag racing. Tony Wedlock now will do battle against Hans van Dyke in the final of Pro Stock Sedan. And I wouldn't like to try and find a winner here, Kevin.
No, this is the best pairing, number 1 and number 2 in Australia. Pro Stock Eliminator this weekend has been simply sensational, and I expect this race to be exactly the same.
You'll find there's absolutely nothing in it, so it's Van Dyke in the Castrol lane in the Holden Commodore. He got a pretty good start. Van Dyke's in front. Here comes Wedlock, but Van Dyke should just hold on. Yes, indeed, that's the way it works out. A great performance. 8-1, 8-7.
Well, Hans, who's a happy boy?
Hans? Who else? In amongst the smoke?
Hans, an 8-1-8 in the final.
Excellent, excellent. I stiffened the shockers up a bit. Thought probably could have chucked more at it, but I wasn't game.
You seem to drive away from Tony right at the top end.
Well, he might have clicked it off. You know, he usually runs more speed than I do, because I don't like sort of the bumps at the finish line, so he shut it off early, but I didn't that time, I don't think.
Well, congratulations, a great win. That moves you right up the ladder now.
Yeah, it's a good break. Excellent. I'm a happy man.
Oh, mate, sorry. I got a bit close to you.
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't see you.
Oh, it's pretty close, yeah. Oh, congratulations, buddy.
Thanks, mate.
Well, Tony, winner last time, runner-up this time.
Yes, it was pretty good. I think the cold track hurt us a little bit. We were turning the tyres pretty bad, and I decided that discretion was the better part of valor once it got a little bit loose in 4th gear, so we shut it off.
Well, you must be really happy with the whole bracket this weekend.
No, it's fantastic. You know, the bracket's brilliant. I'm proud to be part of it, and Hans has done well to win this weekend.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Tony Wedlock and Hans van Dyke, two thoroughly professional campaigners. Talking about professionals, we have that here in the pairing for the final of Pro Stock motorcycle racing.
Donnan, current Australian champion, all the way from South Australia, and further west, Ray Eason from Perth. Eason has the horsepower, but Donnan's reaction times are legendary.
Yes, Donnan certainly the prince of reaction times. On this occasion, though, Ray Eason has left him standing, and Donnan is going to need to pull something very special out of the hat. He can't do it. Eason storms to victory, an 8-0-8-2.
Well, Raymond, the winner.
Yes, thank you.
You've pretty well struggled all weekend, but as you said earlier, you were going to really look after it at the final.
Well, I gave it curry, I can tell you that much.
The track, despite the cold conditions, not too much of a problem for you in the end?
No, if I stay out of the right lane and run the left lane, I've got control of the situation.
Okay, well that really moves you up the point score ladder now.
I was 500 behind. That should knock 200 off it, so I'm now 300 behind Les Donnan.
Well, Les Donnan, runner-up for the Winternationals. It's been a pretty competitive race for you all.
Yes, it certainly has. We started behind the 8 ball, but you know, we've got to the final at least. At least it's going to make the trip home a lot easier to South Australia. Ray put on a good show and beat us on the day.
You really got to the final with a great hole shot over Gavin Spann. He'd been on top of the racing all weekend, but both of you were able to get around him.
Yeah, well, you know, Gavin's probably not as experienced as I am at pro stock racing, so, you know, it's the way it's got to be done. You've got to use your head and make your way to the final the best way you can.
Well, you've kept adding to your point score. That should keep you in front.
Yeah, Ray's catching up, but we're still there.
Well, congratulations on the runner-up, and we look forward to the next round at Adelaide International Raceway.
Thanks, Kevin.
Now moving along to top bike and the all-important final. Jay Upton finds himself set to do battle against Mr. Curry from Victoria.
Yes, Bill Curry, the current Australian champion, and Jay Upton on the Yamaha-powered machine. These motorcycles, of course, the drag racing equivalent of top fuel drags. Nitromethane burning, produce about 450 horsepower with awesome machinery and obviously very, very spectacular. Jay Upton, well known for his showmanship, beautifully presented motorcycles, both of them, and this should be a very, very close race.
Yes, indeed. Upton closest to your camera. In the snap-on tools lane over on the other side of the racetrack is Curry, and he's hoping that he's very hot tonight. A start is now imminent. Jay Upton looking down at his machine. Horsepower personified here with these bikes. Not a solitary spectator has left the venue. Away they go. Simultaneous start. Oh, Curry's hot all right. Have a knife banding and put the mocker on him. The machine's ablaze. Jay Upton barnstorms to the finish line.
Well, Jay Upton, winner of top bike at the 1993 Winternationals and 194 mile an hour.
Well, it's about time, isn't it?
You've been really testing the bike out over the last couple of the months, and this weekend it all came together.
Yes, well, we were struggling a little bit yesterday. We ran 193 first up and thought we were going to really take it away, but we've struggled right until now to get it back to that 190 plus mile an hour.
Now, the ETs are still off a little bit from what you would expect with those sorts of speeds.
Yes, I think it's in the clutch. We had a reasonable ET yesterday morning at 7:25, but we just don't seem to have been able to get back to that, and I think it's probably a clutch problem.
Well, at this stage it doesn't matter because you've got the win.
Thanks, Noddy.
In what has been a very busy weekend of drag racing here at the Willowbank Raceway in Queensland, we now move along to the final pairing, competition eliminator, and Kevin, it's been a very successful 26 Winternationals.
Yes, it certainly has been, and this, the final race, promises to be just as close. On screen now, John Handley from South Australia in the Double B dragster. He's up against Graham Porter in the naturally aspirated A dragster. The naturally aspirated car in the far lane will get the handicap start.
Yes, indeed, a handicap start to Porter. Here comes Handley, though, and as Handley goes about his business, we'll say a very good night from Willowbank Raceway.
Excuse, buddy, a few comments. What do you think of the racing?
Terrific, mate, terrific. Yeah.
Best part?
Best part? Oh, the big guns, mate, the big guns.
Just take it for a minute. Have you enjoyed tonight's racing?
Well, considering I flew down from Rockhampton this morning, got a rent a car, got out here, got a flight back at 8 o'clock in the morning, I think it's well worth it, eh, Kevin?
Did you have a good time?
Always had a good time.
Good man, thanks a lot.
Long way to come, eh?
Your comments on the racing, have you enjoyed it?
Oh, thoroughly, yep. I love it.
It's been good. What do you like best?
I like the top wheelers the best.
And what's drag racing mean to you?
It just gives me a real, I don't know, it's just gives me a real big thrill, I suppose.
Tell me, buddy, what did you think of the racing today?
It's good.
It's good? Yep. What do you like best at drag racing?
Oh, speed.
And which cars?
I don't know, I like the Brave and the Tactile 55 Chef. That's about all.
What did you think of today's racing?
Pretty good.
What do you like best about drag racing?
The noise, the speed.
And what sort of cars do you like best?
Top wheelers.
Any favourites?